Energy Rogue Nation, good afternoon. Welcome back to another weather discussion. Thank you so much for tuning in. As been the case for the last couple of videos, this one will be no different in that it is going to be a very short video discussion. I wanted to give you guys an update on the tropics as well as just general temperature trends that we are expecting over the next several days and the next even couple of weeks. But first, let us begin with this guy. This is Invest 97L, which is currently over the Dominican Republic and Cuba vicinity. I know this map is relatively zoomed in, so it might be kind of hard to tell where this is, but that is the vicinity of which it is located. And we have had tremendous consolidation around what is the center of the system. Now, this is a system that we've been tracking out in the sort of Lesser Antilles region over the last 24 to 48 hours. And if you recall from the previous videos, it was this kind of open wave of shallow to moderate convection. But as we've talked about here over this past week, and really just the last few days, this system has endured quite a bit. Really the main focus that we have talked about here on the channel is that we have seen a lot of Saharan dust that is suppressing much of the Atlantic Basin convection. We've also had some shear that has led to a pretty unfavorable environment, mostly in the Atlantic, over these last couple of weeks. Now, as I've also talked about, the Saharan dust is likely to decrease over time as it is climatologically, as it does so climatologically. So this system has really endured a lot and is now moving into a much more favorable environment for development. As you can see here on our GOES 16 infrared satellite, this is indicating our cloud tops. So of course, the colder or the darker those colors are, it correlates to colder cloud top temperatures in terms of Celsius. And so we are seeing certainly some substantial and robust convection around the low pressure. And especially across the Dominican Republic region, I should say, and near Cuba. This trend is going to continue as this system moves off to the west-northwest and begins to consolidate its convection and also move into a much more favorable environment over time, which is why the National Hurricane Center has upgraded their outlook to a 70% chance of cyclone formation in the next 7 days. And this likely could happen within the next 48 to 72 hours. It's really, it says 7 days, but as you're going to see here on some of our model guidance, it's likely going to be probably even sooner than that. 48 to 72 hours is the time frame that I'm looking at. So this is, again, night near Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, the southeast of Bahamas, and adjacent waters of the southwestern Atlantic, northeastern Caribbean Sea. It's going to be a slow development, kind of a slow burn, but then it's going to move as it moves west-northwest, over portions of the Greater Antilles. It's going to be slow moving. However, as it does so, you're going to see some good progression and development as it does so. So, not a hurricane right now, not a tropical storm at the moment, but pretty high probabilities that we will see a tropical storm out of this here within likely the next 48 to 72 hours. This is really the cone of uncertainty, so to speak. And for folks that are looking towards, say, Louisiana and Texas, I am very bearish on any impacts, or I should say any direct impacts to the area that I circled in black. The reason why I say that, and you're going to see that here on the model shortly, is that think about the pattern we're in the lower 48. We have an upper level ridge out towards the western United States, and then we have sort of this trough that digs across the northeast and the Midwest. Meanwhile, you also have an area of high pressure that's, of course, or what we call our Bermuda High, that's actually expected to expand outward and sort of consolidate near the Atlantic coast of Florida. As that does so, this system is likely going to lodge itself, and I wouldn't say lodge, but slow down somewhere within this area that I circle here in black. So initially, it's going to make its way up towards the panhandle of Florida. The magnitude of this storm at that point is likely unknown. But what is expected is for this storm to at least reach tropical storm, if not a Cat 1 hurricane by the time it reaches somewhere within the panhandles of Florida and Alabama. Once we get to this point, though, and assuming our timeline is correct between, say, 48 to 72 hours-ish, as it gets closer to the Gulf, it really becomes interesting Because what I actually expect to happen is for somewhere in that circle that I drew earlier, so between, say, the Florida Panhandle and the Carolinas, is for that storm to slow down substantially. The models do not have a very good handle on what that means or who gets the worst of it. However, somebody is likely going to see a tropical system that slows down to some capacity and would have some pretty significant ramifications for that, whether that be in terms of sustained wind over a long period of time, rainfall over a long period of time. So even today, there's still quite a bit of uncertainty on what that scenario means, but the higher confidence exists in the short term within this week and early next week for some form of tropical development to take place within that cone of uncertainty. And then beyond that point, we really start to speculate as far as what a slow-moving system would look like. So let me jump into the models and show you exactly what I mean with that. We'll take a look first at, say, the GFS. And so we'll actually, you know what, I think I may zoom in a little bit more. I don't know. Let's see here. Contiguous United States. You know what, that's fine. We'll go back to the North American view, and I think this will give a full picture. So this is our convection on the GFS. As you can see, just off towards the north and west, the Lesser Antilles, back towards the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Cuba. That's going to continue to move off towards the west-northwest. As I mentioned, right, here's that high pressure. Keep an eye on that because that is clockwise flow. We also have that ridge out towards the western United States, which is also an area of high pressure. And so remember, these are both spinning clockwise, and they're sort of converging relatively at this point, or relative to this point. And you're going to see that play out here on the GFS. So watch what happens. Keep a close eye here on the Panhandle as we get to 48 to about 72 hours. This is where, according to the GFS, we begin to see either some form of a tropical storm or a hurricane. I am certainly not going to sit here and speculate necessarily on whether or not we see anything greater than a tropical storm Cat 1, because that is pure speculation at this point. But I think what's important to note with this is that the GFS and a lot of the models are consistent on tropical development, period, and the impacts that come with it. So that takes us into what would be Saturday evening. That would be Sunday evening into Monday. And then look what happens. The system substantially slows down by the time we get to Monday afternoon because we're essentially getting wedged between two air masses. Air mass number 1 are high pressure, clockwise flow, and then essentially air mass number 2 not drawn to scale, which is also clockwise. So it's kind of lodging within these two air masses that are becoming amplified. And so because of that, we don't see a tropical storm veer off towards the west, places like New Orleans and Texas. We instead would steer that and slow it down substantially out near the Carolinas. And so this system, as you can tell, really slows down, and the eye wall pretty much hugs, in this case, in the GFS scenario, what would be Myrtle Beach and the coastline, and then beyond that point, it just continues to crawl across the coast. Don't really get hung up on location here. I think the important thing to take away as far as where the confidence lies is the fact that this system does go through a slowing down period. The same thing goes with the European model. We'll take a look here at this solution, and a little bit more of the same. Pretty good on the timing with convection, although I will note that the difference between the Euro and the GFS is a little bit more bullish on a tropical storm or hurricane impacting initially the Florida Panhandle. Places like Alabama, Panama City, Tallahassee come to mind. But really with the Euro, not too bullish on that, a lot more of a messier convection. And it takes all the way up until what would be Tuesday, Wednesday to form some form of a tropical storm hurricane once again near the coastal Carolinas. So although we have two solutions that are pointing to an eventual hurricane or tropical storm near the Carolina coast, I'm not going to certainly project to you guys that is a possibility. Again, let's not get focused necessarily on the location beyond the next 72 to 84 hours. And instead, the main theme I want to mention to you guys is that we are now seeing a consistent pattern and a good confidence beginning to emerge with a lot of our model suite that at some point within this general vicinity, let's draw that a little bit more to scale, at some point within this general vicinity, this storm is likely to slow down because of the two opposing air masses that are on either side, which will allow it to slow down. I think to me as a meteorologist, that's probably the most alarming thing. The last thing you want to see is for a hurricane to be intensifying or staying at the magnitude that it is, and for the eye wall to be continuously hitting one spot for a very prolonged period of time. Whoever gets the worst of this storm is likely going to see some pretty severe consequences, some pretty severe damage and ramifications, I should say. So I'm not trying to say this to scare you. This is just the reality of what it is. We have a really good parameter space that exists. The ingredients exist for additional development with this storm. What I can say, though, is right now as it stands, there is very low probability that we will see direct impacts to areas near New Orleans and Freeport, Houston, Galveston, Corpus Christi. Not like what we saw with Beryl. The current pattern just really doesn't support that. If anything changes, of course, we'll keep you updated. But as it stands today, it would really take a village for that storm to hook all the way west to the area that I circled in black for places like Texas and Louisiana. Right now, the pattern just does not support that. So that in mind, that's kind of where we're at the moment. This storm is not a tropical storm right now. It is just an invest. We are likely to see tropical storm, in my expertise perspective. Really, the key period, the critical period is going to be the next 48 to 72 hours. We will likely see a tropical storm and or hurricane by the time we get to early next week. That is certainly in the cards. Very warm sea surface temperatures. Shear values are favorable for the development of a tropical storm. So we will keep you posted. But just like was the case with Beryl and just like was the case with the last couple of videos, this video is just meant to kind of keep you in the loop and keep you thinking about what's going on here in the tropics. Other than that, the Pacific is going to remain pretty active, and that's going to be the main event for a lot of major hurricane development out towards the eastern Pacific. The conditions are just absolutely perfect out there. It really is just a matter of which storm is going to do it. Right now, we do have tropical storm. I think it's Carlette or Carlotte that's out that way, or it might be Charlotte. Don't quote me. But that's going to mostly remain out at sea. We're not expecting any United States or Mexico impacts necessarily, more so shipping lanes. The immediate concern is going to be whatever happens with this Invest 97L as that continues to progress west-northwest towards the Florida Panhandle and the eastern Gulf shores by the time we get to this weekend, early next week. I will tell you guys now as a programming note, I will be away over the weekend. I'm actually going to be traveling back home to Chicago. So I'm going to be traveling out on the road. So I will likely not have a video on Saturday. Actually, I can tell you right now I won't. However, please, please, please ask me questions about the tropics over the next few days or wildfires, anything weather related. Post those in the channel because I will have my phone with me and I will be responding to questions as they come. So if you need any clarification on the latest, I'll be sure to answer those questions. I will also be posting updates on Discord continuously over the next few days. So while there won't be a video, I will still be posting updates, any sources that I can convey to you, and addressing any questions you have based on what I post. So that programming note aside, please feel free as I travel, as I'm out on the road, just shoot me a message on Discord through the Energy Road channel. I'm happy to answer any questions and chat with you guys as we have. So real quickly, as we will conclude the video, we'll really just kind of end things off with the temperatures. And so as you saw here on the 500 millibar map, this jet pattern that we're in, we're going right back to that blocking pattern. So 500 millibar is our jet pattern. And this is taking a look at the European. This is really where our high pressure is situated, right near the southern United States and mostly encompassing much of the western United States, even the central Rockies. That's going to continue. And we will likely see some fluctuation of that. It's not going to stay consistent as we see even on the European. But I will say that the heat is going to ramp up for the southern United States especially. And one thing that I want to note with this is that if we were to incorporate population-weighted degree days, remember that the southern United States has the biggest population according to census data. So while the western United States, I believe, is up there certainly in the top 3 or top 4, the southern United States, there certainly will be the demand for some cooling because we will be seeing some above average temperatures returning to this part of the country. We've already been seeing some of that heat as it is today, but that is going to continue through the weekend. Let's actually take a look here at the ensemble GEFS. We were looking there at the Euro, but you're going to see more of the same here with what the ensemble is showing. Let's see if I can get that to load. It's kind of being finicky with me right now, so I guess we'll go to the 6Z. And, oh, yeah, okay, so it's, I guess the website's kind of flaking out a bit. Okay, well, it's not doing so well. I think there's an issue with the tabulation of the model itself. So let's just look here at the GFS. We'll get still a better sense. The ensembles have been pretty confident in this scenario, but as you can see, right, we do have area of high pressure continuing to envelop much of the southern United States. The Northeast and the Midwest should fluctuate with their temperatures. Not to say that you won't be warm, but we're certainly going to be seeing quite a bit of shower and thunderstorm activity anywhere where you see this green, which is indicative of our jet stream. So we're going to see a lot of oscillating temperatures with the Northeast, the Midwest, and the upper Midwest, but not to where we're seeing Arctic plunges or anything that is going to require, you know, heating necessarily. It's still going to be relatively warm. It's just not going to be, you know, well above average, so to speak. The well above average temperatures, as we've been talking about, is going to be for the southern United States. Interestingly enough, you can also see on the ensembles, they are pointing, or excuse me, it's the GFS, I should say, that is showing the what would be essentially a hurricane off the coast of the Carolinas too. You can even see it on the 500 millibar jet. But if we look here at our standard temperature anomalies, you can see, look at where all your warm temperatures above average are. They are centered right where those height rises are, where that big 5940 line is. So that is certainly indicating very oppressive high pressure and also encompassing a very large swath of the southern United States. And you notice that these warm temperatures really envelop the southern half of the U.S., and then as we talked about, more of sort of a neutral temperature regime, or kind of at normal, I should say, for much of the Northeast and the upper Midwest, really over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. So, you know, I don't want to be generic and say that nothing's really changed, but nothing has really changed in our temperatures. The only thing that is different is that we are seeing less cooling up towards the you know, areas circled in black, less of those cooler than normal temperatures, and an increase in above average temperatures for the southern United States. That's really the only minor change, but otherwise the pattern itself with the upper level ridge out west, it's going to be more of the same. And Tom, you know, and Jay, a lot of you in the channel, we've been having discussions about the wildfires out towards Larimer County in Colorado. I hate to tell you, you know, unless if the fire runs out of fuels, it really is going to continue to be a environment supportive of wildfire conflagration. So, you know, more of the same in terms of low relative humidities, some light to moderate winds at times. You know, really with these wildfires, something to consider is that, you know, the only way it really stops is if the resources and, you know, there's fuel breaks that will stop the fire from latching on to more fuel to burn. It's really going to take a lot of mitigation efforts from local fire department to really stop that, because otherwise Mother Nature is certainly not going to be cooperating. It's going to take really a village to mitigate a lot of these fires. And from what I understand as of today, not to completely deviate here to end the video, but I have seen Tom and Jay and all you folks in the channel that Larimer County, as of this morning and afternoon, fire containment is very minimal. So they're certainly having a lot of difficulties and struggles with that one, especially as we're looking towards just areas west of Boulder. And of course, air quality is also going to be a concern, not necessarily for areas downstream in the Midwest and the Northeast, but actually localized for Boulder and north central Colorado. And the reason why is because that jet stream is moving over top of those wildfires. There's really nothing to carry that wildfire smoke eastward, unlike up towards Alberta and up towards Saskatchewan, where that gets caught in the jet and then is advected south when we do have those wildfires across those provinces. So more of a localized air quality concern. Same thing can be said for areas of California, the Park California wildfire that's still ongoing. So not just a wildfire concern with those minor storylines. I shouldn't say minor, sub-regional storylines. It's not just, you know, a wildfire concern for the subregions, but it's also an air quality concern, and that can certainly impact lives as well and make it very hard on those communities. So listen, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As I mentioned, any questions over the next couple of days, just post those in the Discord. I can't encourage you guys enough. You've been great with that. Thank you for the interactions. I love talking to you guys and really just kind of sharing thoughts about different parts of the country and all the storylines that are happening with weather right now. And like I said, there's not going to be any video content here over the next couple of days. I will not be back in Chicago until probably Sunday. So if anything, expect an update then. But otherwise, you're going to likely just see some postings from me in the Discord on updates to keep you guys in the loop. Thank you so much for tuning in as always, and we will be back soon with some more weather updates. Take care.